Staff want us to point you out to a few issues that we find that the board should consider in this hearing. And that is first, this property is steep. We have, there's an exhibit, under Exhibit B on page 156B, there's a map from the applicant that can clearly show some areas where we have some really steep slopes, like I mentioned, 40 to 65%. This needs to be, we need to look at this part of, to meet that carrying capacity criteria. As well as we have water and fire concerns for this property. With the steep slopes, location appears to be a box-like canyon. Fire hazards are a concern for residential development at this density. Staff also wants to point out that we feel that the proposed density of R5 is high for this property, and there is another choice that the board could make as far as density goes. That is a limited development. It is a 20-acre minimum lot size. I must point out that the Planning Commission did make a recommendation to the board on this application. While staff expressed concerns about steep slopes on the site, carrying capacity issues, and conflicts with deer winter range, the Planning Commission concluded that the evidence provided by the applicant demonstrated that the property was non-resource and suitable for development at the rural residential density. Therefore, the Planning Commission recommends that the Board of County Commissioners approve this application. Mr. Hare?
Yeah, Mr. Clark, why would the board make a different recommendation other than that which is recommended by staff planning?
Well, we have, you guys,
That's our job.
in the application.
I realize that, and I appreciate that, and I'll be the first to confess, I never thought of that, Chair.
Well,
Yeah.
But I'm trying to figure out, you made those allusions, those possible, etc. And I'm just wanting to try to figure out, I'm not argumentative, I'm not back in your face, I'm just trying to gather information, and that's all I'm trying to do.
Yeah. The application in front of you today is for rural residential 5-acre. We can't tell the applicant to do something other than, the applicant has choices. They chose R5, and that's what this board should consider at this time. If the board thinks that R5 is too high of a density, the applicant knows there's another choice to be made there, if need be.
Well, I think specifically the question was about why wouldn't we reinforce staff's recommendation, which staff's recommendation is to deny this application, not to approve the recommendation of the Rural Planning Commission and the application. And what I am trying to do is weigh the carrying capacity, the limitations, and some of these other factors that whether or not RR5 is the right recommendation for this, whether or not the board could approve limited development today, and that would be 7 lots. RR5 is a 5-acre minimum. That doesn't mean that they have to divide it up into 5-acre parcels. Typically people do. I mean, if you look at a plan map, they're 5 acres or as close to that as they can possibly get as many lots as they can. But there's slope determinations, there's deer winter range overlay that's going to limit the number of people, so limit the number of developments. I think there's a lot of things that maybe we could have in a discussion, but they're going to come out in this process here today. So, but there's a lot of different factors that go into this, so it isn't cut and dried. You know, that's why there's probably a difference between the recommendation of staff and the recommendation for the Planning Commission. So, I think we can do that.
That's all I have for staff report. If there's any more questions.
Great.
Move forward.
Well, I may be on the wrong railroad here. My impression is, if I'm reading this, that the planning department and our staff, I'm assuming it's the same entity, has recommended this proposal.
No, you can actually.
I thought I was asking the planning department.
Do you want to take that?
I could. I'm Dick Converse, known as the interim planning director. The response to that is that staff does provide a staff report to the planning commission, and the planning commission received a recommendation from staff that it be denied or that that larger lot size be considered. Our staff report was prepared based on the application that came in and responses to requests for comment. That is all put together as a package that goes before the planning commission, and then they have the full public hearing where they consider the staff recommendation and then weigh that against the testimony that's provided at the hearing. And at that hearing, they made the recommendation to go with the RR5 designation. And that was over the, in a sense, objection of staff, but it's then modified by all of the discussion that's made at the hearing. And then that becomes the formal recommendation to the board. It's the planning commission recommendation rather than the staff recommendation.
Thanks for the clarification.
Sure.
Don't mind.